Right, welcome back. The week ahead continues. Let's take you back to Soweto, where we find a reporter, Kalihle Kumalo. Kalihle, obviously live visuals coming through. It does look like the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has arrived on the back of what we spoke about earlier. What currently is transpiring on your end?
Well, that's right, Liesl. So these are the visuals that you're seeing here from Hector Petersen Memorial right here in Soweto. So the Secretary of State from the U.S. just arrived in Soweto. So these are the visuals that you're going to see throughout. You can see that his motorcade is right here. So we're all waiting with bated breath to see. So it's going to be a very significant occasion because he's going to lay a wreath in honor of Hector Petersen, one of the youngsters who unfortunately died in those Soweto uprisings in 1976. And this is one of the locations that has been chosen by the U.S. Embassy to celebrate the youth of South Africa. And we do know that they are facing a myriad of challenges, and someone who's well positioned as well here is, of course, that's the sister of Hector Petersen, that Antony. So she's right here as well. But it's a very important moment as well between South Africa and the U.S. It's a day one for the Secretary of State in the country after quite a very busy schedule for him, Liesl. He just got back from Southeast Asia, where he was attending the ASEAN summits in Cambodia, and now he's right here in Sub-Saharan Africa. So now it's the opportunity of Sub-Saharan Africa to have an opportunity to engage with the U.S. So any minutes from now onwards, he may come out. So we're just all waiting keenly. And obviously a very significant moment between Washington, D.C. and Pretoria. We do know that these are very important countries. They work together in so many spheres. You look at education, you look at technology, you look at issues around the fight against corruption. We know this is a very pervasive issue right here in the country. But also, I'm not alone, Liesl. We do have our own international editor as well, Sophie Mugwena. So, Sophie, quite a very poignant moment is, of course, the wreath-laying ceremony to honor Peter, of course, one of the young stars who fought against apartheid.
Yes, the story of Hector Petersen is quite huge and all over the world. You'd recall that those visuals were beamed all over the world, and therefore it is one issue that will continue to haunt those who were involved in the massacre of young people in South Africa in 1976. When I arrived here, when I looked at that picture, I was asking myself, who pulled that trigger that finally led to the fatal shooting of Hector Petersen and many other young students or learners in South Africa. I think it's a picture that will continue to be in our minds, and all the time high-profile diplomats visiting South Africa, visiting this place to really get a sense of what that picture meant then and even now, a conscious to young people in the country that the freedom that was achieved after 1994, it was not easy to achieve that. It was by sweat and blood of many South Africans in South Africa who fought for the liberation of this country. And Hector Petersen's sister standing there because the Secretary of State will lay the wreath there, and they will have a short discussion around this important area where we are today in Soweto. And I think, it is going to be a moment to reflect, particularly for the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken.
And it's quite fascinating because, well, there you go. So the moment you've all been waiting for, there you go. That's the 71st Secretary of State from the United States of America is walking here and is coming to, of course, to pay homage to the young man who perished here. And of course, very important moment, very poignant as well, speaking to the history of South Africa. a very terrible. There you go, the very important handshake. That's, of course, the sister of Hector Petersen, that's Antony. There's interaction there, so we're expecting Mr. Blinken to lay a wreath in a matter of time. So we've been really waiting for this moment, and it's finally here, Sophie.
Yes, it's finally here. We have witnessed many Secretary of State from the United States of America since 1994 visiting South Africa. You can talk about Hillary Clinton, you can talk about Madeleine Albright, you can talk about many others who have touched down here in South Africa. And today, here we are, the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has arrived. The first event of the day, he landed this morning. Another engagement later this afternoon, and of course the big one tomorrow with Minister of International Relations, Naledi Pandor.
And what does it mean just between Washington, D.C. and Pretoria that we're seeing this occasion? And of course, it's a very important period for these two countries, especially because these are the economies that were affected by COVID-19. And we also saw the U.S. coming to the rescue of sub-Saharan Africa at some point, albeit there was an issue of, the vaccine holding at some point. But what does it mean, just to unpack it?
It is important for South Africa to continuously have these engagements with other countries, not only the United States of America, with the aim of pushing the interest of the country. And that interest will include around ensuring that we have a peaceful Africa, we have a peaceful world, but also the issues of trade and investment, because it is important for South Africa to continuously have those healthy relationships. You spoke about the COVID-19. Yes, indeed. It was the United States of America that assisted South Africa in its fight against the TRIPS waiver, even though we didn't get exactly what we wanted. But the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, did support President Ramaphosa and India in particular when they were pushing the World Trade Organization to consider the issue of TRIPS waiver for COVID-19 vaccines and all the therapeutics, while this challenge is still a pandemic.
So there you have it. It's a very momentous occasion. So now, of course, he has paid homage. Of course, the Secretary of State is joined by Hector Petersen's sister. There is a dialogue that they are having there, and one can just wonder what they are talking about. But I'm sure it's very just gory details about those events, how they were running. So, but I believe now they are proceeding inside the museum.
Yes, they are going to visit the museum, and inside the museum, that's where they will see more pictures in terms of what transpired on that fateful day where Hector Petersen lost his life, and many young people perishing.
And of course, just bear with us, the visuals might just be a bit wobbly as we are making our way inside the very historical sites, of course, paying tribute to those young people who really marched against the apartheid regime. And it is quite a very poignant time. Of course, it is a walkabout. It's bound to be just a bit clumsy, so just bear with us as we're having this walkabout inside here. And of course, a very interesting time, and it's been a very busy schedule for the Secretary of State. And we know that tomorrow he's going to have a very important time as well, where he's going to meet with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Dr. Pandor, where they'll be looking at a number of issues in terms of cementing the bilateral ties between the United States of America and South Africa. So once again, just bear with us. It might be slightly dark in here as we just enter inside here, this historical site, the Hector Petersen Memorial right here in Soweto. And we're just going to wait kindly for the Secretary of State from the U.S., Antony Blinken, as he makes his way inside this very sacred facility. And of course, I'm still not alone. We still do have our own international editor here, the SABC Sophie Mukwena. And there you go, they're right inside. So I'm sure Antony is giving a very detailed account about those moments. And in 1976, that was a very harsh period of time. Of course, you can see in our visual as well, there's an ambassador designate from Washington, D.C., and he's yet to give in his credentials. And of course, he's still ambassador designate. He must be accredited, and then we'll have an interaction with him. Of course, it's a bit of... All right. All right, so just bear with us. Obviously, very interesting times. Liesl, I can tell you this much. This is a very... Well, Sophie's still here. Sophie, let's talk about, as we enter here, quite a very important moment. So much, I'm sure, the history of this country.
Pushing and shoving, journalists trying to get the best visuals. I hope our viewers will bear with us with those shaky visuals. But indeed, an important moment as Hector Petersen's sister is kind of relating what transpired on that day. And in the museum, the pictures telling a story, a gory story of what transpired.
And I'm sure, I'm just looking at these visuals. The Secretary of State looks very fascinated by the history, but also just a very sad chapter about the road that South Africa has traveled. And, you look at South Africa and the US, how they've supported South Africa's journey in terms of its own democracy. Of course, not without weaknesses, with a number of strides made in so many respects, but also with quite a number of challenges that we still do face in the fight against corruption, in the fight against the youth unemployment, and a myriad of other challenges.
Yes, of course, the country going through difficult times right now. You know that in 2008, it was the economic meltdown globally. We were affected and then we recovered. Of course, COVID-19, with all the challenges and the impact thereof, particularly relating to the economy of South Africa. And from there, now you have this challenge of the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine, because you know that globally the economy was affected or is still affected. And therefore, yes, the visit comes at a difficult time. You can see even the nation is restless because of the economic challenges that we are facing currently. And this visit is quite important in a sense that it will also speak to trade relations. How can South Africa strengthen trade relations with other countries so that the economic situation of this country can improve? And therefore, I think, it comes at a difficult time. It comes at a very, very difficult time. And I think for now, let's hand over to our colleagues in studio to continue with the program. I think we have reflected what is happening here at Soweto.
Very much so, Liesl. So we're just going to hand it back to you. Of course, it's been a bit of a wrestling ride, but of course, those are the moments that we'll leave you with from here in Soweto at the Hector Petersen Museum. So back to you in Johannesburg.
Very much, Sophie Mukwena, as well as Khalihle Kumalo at the Hector Petersen Memorial. That's in Soweto, where we understand that the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has now arrived in South Africa, is on a tour at the museum. This forms part of the first of his three-nation African tour, expected to visit the DRC as well as Rwanda as well. We'll continue to monitor that visit, perhaps also look at some of the issues that come out. We're looking at the economy, we're looking at issues of food security, perhaps even drawing parallels between what is currently unfolding in the United States of America and South Africa, and how the countries are going to collaborate, work together to charter the way forward. So we'll continue to monitor as that